Later on, of course, in the balanced part of my career, I was just introduced to you as a profit center head. So Bosch & Lomb India was my first profit center, then Bosch & Lomb Canada. And then later on in Marico, I was their chief operating officer for a year. And then in Dr. Reddy's, I was the president of 40 different countries, handling their branded generics, which is their most profitable business in every other country other than North America and Western Europe. So today, that is my belt, by the way. That's where I travel to. Not all 40 countries, but 10 or 12 countries. Easternmost all the way down to Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and then all the way down to Toronto. I have 2 homes, and I keep going back and forth, acting, as you saw in the introduction slide. I am actually living my dream of being a bridge between continents. So for me, traveling east, west, north, south, it just comes easy. And not only is this bridge in terms of physical travel, but more importantly, I've been able to sort of bring together the understanding of the spiritual traditions, the study of nature, the study of quantum sciences. I've been able to pull all of this together from various sources, and I'm able to sort of link it up with what I used to practice for 35 years as a young leader, and then as a slightly older leader, as a profit center head. And the beauty is that whenever I do take the stage, not today for an hour, but we do a workshop for a day, a full day, or sometimes 2 days, then it is really interesting to see how these learnings, from whichever domain we draw them, whether it's from nature, whether it's from science, whether it's from an art form called painting or music, being a good conductor. So any learning you can pick up, and if it's coming from the domain of doing first and then learning, and if it can be directly applied to our mandates as leaders, whatever that mandate is, whether we are marketing, finance, technical, doesn't matter. The mandate is most often the highest common denominator is, are we generating wealth? Are we generating portfolios, width, portfolio depth of great brands, great know-how, great people, great leaders who will lead these corporations in the future, right? For me, therefore, that was a huge sense of satisfaction. Not only was I leaving behind quarterly milestones, but also huge portfolio depths of people, resources, as well as brand resources, right? Fortunately for me, started very early in life, spotting talent. I was going back to the institutes to do first round of screening, by the way, for the first 5 batches of trainees in Nestle, and bringing them back, became their coach, became their mentor, their trainer. All this like 40 years ago. And right through these 40 years have been a pleasure, love delivering results, short as well as long, and portfolio depths as well as widths, and bringing diverse stakeholders to the table and getting them to work together with a huge sense of ownership, right? Every time we came across a challenge called "Can't Be Done," we happily plagiarized a quote from Abraham Lincoln. Either we find a way or we make one, right? And I was able to use that to challenge just about any can't do syndrome that I came across, saying this can't be done. And very often that is the case when you're doing new things, right? New products, new industries, new. And in our case, we are setting a new context here. We are trying to build successful businesses and careers here in North America. So very easy to come across a can't be done syndrome. Not us in the room, because I know many of us are pioneers and have been here and have built everything up to the stature that we just heard everyone introduce himself. Been here for 15 years, been here for 30 years, been here just for 2 years, but we are able to quickly find our feet and start making a difference, which is what leaders are all about. Wherever we are, if we can make a difference, and if that difference can be, as I said, of course, short and long-term impact, people impact, wonderful. So that's been a little bit about my journey. On this question of in this journey, not only was this business of applying common sense on the ground. So not only was I using the stuff I'd learned on the sports fields of putting my arms around and getting energy going, but I was also wanting to try to understand what else could I do to break this can't do syndrome, right? So one of the problems that one faces is when one is told, do you want this or that? Short-term results or long-term results, as an example. Do you want to have people focus or task focus? So I think in this journey that I was making for myself, and I'm still, as I said, learning, finding my way, I also needed to take head on the situation called, it's paradoxical. It seems to want to do both. But at first glance, it doesn't seem to happen. It just pulls apart. So if I said, as leaders, are we in the business of always converting chaos into order? And therefore, is that the nature of leadership? Is that unidirectional? Is that true? Or is the opposite also true? Order can also be turned into chaos. Which of these is true? Okay. So, in other words, I'm asking is it a question of do we have to choose between chaos and order? Is it an or situation? Or is it an and situation? Because in addition to learning to manage people, products, competitors, I was also needing to cross this particular bridge called, but this is a paradox. Can you decide what do you want? So, anyone in the room wanting to say it's an or situation or an and situation? Chaos, order. And by the way, we can take any other poles. It doesn't have to be chaos and order. It can be any other poles. And for this, this is the reason I have brought in these slips for you. So just kindly take one each, please, once again, and see if you can try and give me a solution to this problem of when we were trying to manage. Take one each, please. If we were, as leaders, if leadership was just a straight line saying the right product, right place, right time, and there you are, it's going to be a success, then it was no brainer. But in leadership, we all know we come across situations which are not so straightforward, and the solution is not so straightforward, right? So, paradox, therefore, of is it this or that, or is it both, needed to be traversed and crossed in my journey too. Because as I said to you, I was wanting to do both, short and long-term results, people, portfolios, as well as task focus, right? And as I was reading, of course, if you remember when we were in the institute, certain early readings were telling us that there are leaders who are able to do both, right? And later on, someone went ahead and called it level 5 leadership. But level 5 leadership is an ancient art form, and we used to call them philosopher kings. We used to call them servant leaders, right? Who were able to do both, get the job done, as well as be able to look after the welfare and the well-being of all, right? So this paradox, whenever we come across, now this piece of paper I've given you, I was suggesting chaos and order, but you could write any two opposites, if you like, on two different sides of this piece of paper, right? So suppose you wrote short-term, long-term, people focus, task focus, right? Any other poles that we have been, as leaders, we are asked to manage both, not one, not the other, but both? Anyone can think of? I give you some examples.
Top line, bottom line.
Top and bottom line, excellent example. Give us both. Economic value added, profitable revenue growth. We need both revenue as well as profit productivity. Wonderful. Any other opposites that we were being asked to work as we were finding our way through this beautiful journey of being leaders who make a difference, or human beings who make a difference.
Do more with less.
Do more with less. Absolutely. Fantastic.
Quality and quantity.
Quality and quantity. Excellent. So, n number of opposites that we were asked to handle, and we are still handling as leaders, as humans. So, imagine they are on the opposite sides of the paper now, right? Is there anything you can do to this paper to say that as leaders, as managers, we had to learn the art and the science of managing both? So can you think of doing anything with this little slip of paper? And one of you has done it, but don't yet do it. Don't yet do it, please. Those of you who've already got it that quickly. So anything you can do to this piece of paper, I'm so sorry, where you can make the two opposites, I just mentioned paradoxical opposites, we need to manage them, pick them one. Anything? Yes? Those of you who've done it, keep it hidden for a moment, please. Wonderful. Excellent. Please merge the two poles, because we are young leaders, young and old leaders, by the way. I keep calling myself young, but I know I'm not that young anymore. Yeah? So, anything I can see 2, 3, 4. That's a nice one. That's a very innovative one.
That's managing and leadership. So managing and building relationships.
Excellent. Wonderful. So, but you know, the test, the litmus test of what I've given you is, remember I asked you to merge two apparent opposites as if they are one. And the test is, if you've managed the shape correctly, you should be able to trace your finger on both sides of the opposites without lifting your finger. That's what you've got to be able to do. So those of you who've already done it, and by the way, if you want any staplers, there are staplers. If you want to hold that shape for a moment, you can just staple it. Do you need a stapler? No. Okay, 2 guys done it. Anyone else? We have 40 strong, 55, 3. Wonderful. Innovative, done, but trace the finger here. It's not going to go to both sides of the paper. No, you'll have to lift the finger to go to both sides. Without lifting the finger, you should be able to go to both sides of the piece of paper. Hard try, good try, good try. There, you got it. Just trace the finger now. Trace the finger, give yourself the proof of the pudding that it works, right? So can any? Yes, wonderful. Yeah. So, okay guys, those of you who gave me very creative ones, wonderful. I love that heart one, for example, right? And that too, I mean, that's really creative, but it's not going to, the finger is going to remain inside. It's not going to be able to come. You have to come outside, right? So for it to come outside, can any one of us please show what we did? Yeah, you were the first to do it, sir. So please, if you could just quickly tell us what did you do to make
just
the two.
The basic Mobius strip or whatever, you just have to take the opposite ends and just join them up so that you can go from the top.
Wonderful. So this is a mathematician called Mobius who lived roughly 200 years ago in Germany. And he gave us this mathematical solution to the problem, saying you can merge two opposites together, right? And the simple action is, you've got to, all of you can do it now, just twist it, take one edge and twist it once, and then join it. That's it. That's the only thing you need to do. Okay? And if I was doing it with my hands, I would do it as simply as this. See, when two poles are looking as if they are opposing, and there are colliding forces happening in the teams we were managing, and contradictory forces need to be optimized, right? So this action means they are going to collide, right? But if I just, and this is not a handshake, I asked for a handshake, I wanted both the poles to be the same. Chaos is in order, order is in chaos, for example, is where I was taking you. The only way you can get a two hands to handshake is, you're going to have to turn one hand. You're going to turn one hand. You can have a handshake. Yeah? So same action, by the way. We did it with a piece of paper, and we just twisted it. That's all we did. That's all we did. Yeah? So whether we do it with a piece of paper, whether we do it with the hands like this, a handshake between two apparent poles is definitely possible, right? So once we open our mind to that possibility, then in actual practice terms, how do we practice this in day-to-day life?
So Jaspal, I was thinking, being married, it happens every minute of the day, right?
Can there be any better school of learning by doing, learning by making mistakes than the school of marriage? So sure, I 100% agree with you. But any example you want to share with us? Yeah. So you're right. I mean, the more we get to dirty our hands and do things and make mistakes, and marriage, as we all know, can also be considered a delightful mistake. By the way, I'm happily married. Don't think I'm divorced or anything like that. I have my daughter here with me. And but yeah, we learn by doing, we learn by mistakes. And in this Mobius business, yeah, it was great from a mathematical standpoint. How do we implement this in day-to-day life? How do you think I was sort of bringing it into my daily practice as a finding my way out there as a young leader, wanting to find ways to bring things together?
You have to change someone else's thinking or yours.
You have to change something, someone's thinking, either someone else's or yours, right? Which of the two is more comes first? Because the cause and effect theory comes into place. Which one comes first?
Your own.
Absolutely. So I think if there's one thing I'd like to share with you in 35 years of practice as an operational leader is just this, that at the end of the day, handshakes have to happen, right? Whether they are between cross-functional teams, where some people just love the fights that go on between marketing and manufacturing, finance and someone else, right? But if we are going to work together with each other seamlessly, and in today's global world, that seamlessness actually has gone way beyond cross-functional collaboration. It has now gone into the domain of partnerships, alliances, even with competitors sometimes, right? And this action, therefore, or the handshake, is absolutely critical. And the learning I'm sharing with you is first, Jaspal, learn to examine your perspective. If your lens is not right, learn to change it, clean it. And second, examine your own paradigms, your own premises, which you may think are enough for you to say, I've seen it all, done it all. Re-examine them. And if necessary, first change yourself. If necessary, first examine your premises, right? And that is the single biggest learning I'm now sharing with all the next generation leaders I'm interacting with as a coach, as a leadership facilitator, saying the journey that we are all of us trying to find our way to actually begins in here. And the descriptor of being a leader is not about followerships. It is about first taking ownership for ourselves, right? And that is why you know that this whole domain called positive psychology, which I took the trouble to study for 16 weeks in Penn State, this whole notion of emotional intelligence is all about first understanding ourselves. The first three components of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation. And it's after that that we come to the skills called empathy, having a thin enough skin to be able to understand where the shoe pinches, whether the shoe is that of a consumer or a collaborator or a vendor or a partner, right? Or an employee. And so emotional intelligence, and thereafter when we work the way we, all of us in the room are working across borders, across continents, I think that the challenge that gets thrown up to us is, are we able to do what the media headlines are saying? So if I go and do Google search on diversity as a competitive edge, the first 10 pages of Google, just about every large corporation that we have heard of would have said diversity is the way to go, right? Here in Canada, there are media reports happening, and the most recent one was the CEO of RBC in Globe and Mail, just on 12th of May. And if you go back, as I said, 10 pages of Google search, you'll find just about anyone and everyone who has any standing in either in the corporate world or in North America says diversity indeed is something we can leverage. But the question is, are we leveraging it? Do you think that despite these media reports that we are seeing, or consultancy reports, which are sort of said there's a study done that those organizations which are able to use diversity as a weapon, as a competitive edge, they generate significantly higher returns on equity than others. So the question to all of us living here in North America is, if we are going to play our role as bridges between continents, between ways of thinking, and if diversity is in fact on the plate, this is one of the most multicultural society here in Toronto that we are living in, are we leveraging that diversity as much as these media reports are hyping it up to be? What do you think is the current situation?
It's not adequate.
Not adequate, right? And what do you think might be stopping these statements which are being made at top levels in corporations or in consultancy? What's stopping us from seeing them on the ground?
Preconceptions.
Pardon?
Preconceptions about
Preconceptions.
Or fear of failure. People don't
Fear
want-
of failure, absolutely. So there could be preconceptions, Deepak says, both of our own preconceptions as well as the preconceptions of people with whom we are working with all the time. Right? So if our perceptions and paradigms and premises need to be examined, obviously the same holds for others too. And as Suresh says, in every endeavor there's always this fear of failure, if I heard you correctly, right? So,
As a business case though, I find it's changing now, particularly for consulting organizations,
Yes.
because the clients are becoming diverse.
absolutely.
And so if three white men go and try and win a client,
Yes.
but the client is not three white men,
Yes.
they're not going to get the deal.
Yes.
So I think as a business case, we are spending much more time and effort in diversity.
Yes.
And in not saying this is one big melting pot, throw away your identities,
Yes.
but say bring your diversity, because that is what is a high performing team is about.
Absolutely. So it is happening, and it's going to happen more and more. The case study I wanted to share with you, but as I said, I'm not going to bore you with slides, but here's the case study I did bring with you to share with you. It was not only diversity in the teams I was managing, but there's a very, very brilliant case study on the two terms called chaos and order. If you ever merge them together, you end up getting a new English language word called chaotic. So afterwards, if you like, you might want to look up who gave birth to this coined word called chaotic. And what you'll find is that it was none other than the founder of a piece of plastic many of us are carrying around in our wallets. Which company might I be talking about?
Visa?
Visa, absolutely. So this is D Hawk. He's a founder, and it's a beautiful story because it sort of symbolizes everything I've been sharing with you in my own journey, where I said to you that I was wanting to learn from nature, I was wanting to learn from my sports field, I was wanting to learn by doing and then sharing with others, right? So this D Hawk story is beautiful. You can easily Google it. Where I came across it first was in a very interesting book called What Did We Learn from the Rainforests, right? And that was a huge study done by a conglomerate of many corporations from Japan, from North America, all of us wanting to say, if this is true, that nature has been man's biggest teacher in the past, then question, will nature also be man's biggest teacher in the future? And what do you think the answer to that was? Or what is our answer today? Absolutely yes, right? So there's a beautiful book written on that, saying what did we learn in the rainforest, and in that I found this case study for the first time. Subsequently I found it on the net. So chaotic is a beautiful concept where D Hawk went ahead and established a pioneering company at that time, because they had to take on the might of Bank of America, who were saying, why do we need credit cards? And what are these small banks all about after all? So, but he got everyone together, the small banks together, made a voice that was going to be heard, and they were going to be heard even if the opposing voice was as strong and as powerful as that of Bank of America. And rest is history, because credit cards are now very much the norm, and they are going on expanding their influence in a cash or cashless society, right? So chaos and order, by the way, this gentleman went ahead and wrote about it in his own words too. So I have a handout that I brought for you, so you may want to sort of take this with you. Beautiful, how he sort of summarizes how for him making chaos and order coexist at the same time in the same company, how it enabled a very, very alive and vital company which continues to be a leader even today, right? So I think whenever we do come across paradoxes, whether they are chaos and order, whether it is any of the other opposites that we saw, I think all we want to do is do this action, bring them together, and make sure that we are able to manage these two poles and get the best out of them, right? The last, I know we are running a little bit behind, the last thing is another handout I brought for you to sort of summarize what I've been saying to you. And this, if you want, the question I have to you on this particular handout, that's from D Hawk, right, what I just shared. Now I'm trying to share with you what my own study of, if I wanted to lead best-in-class teams, small ones, big ones, I was wanting to learn from what others have done to be best of class, right? So ended up forming a little bit of a framework, you might say, and now I've handed it out to you, called the 7A framework, saying it seemed to me that just about any company which had managed best-in-class status for any length of time, it seemed to have taken care of all the A's that you find on this piece of paper that you are now getting as a roadmap or a journey. Because if this question of finding our way, if it's all a journey, then here is another way of looking at this journey. And as the last sheets reach the back of the room, everyone got an A? And if they're extra, no problem. Yeah, thank you. But everyone's got an A as well? Yeah? Okay, if everyone's got it, here's my question. First glance, do you sort of see anything in this which resonates with your own experience? Best in class, journey towards best in class, if that is one aspect of finding our way. Any echoes, any resonance?
Are we talking about this one?
Yes, I'm not talking this one. Yes. It's a simpler sheet because the other one is a read at leisure sheet, the D Hawk one.
I think the concept of graciousness.
Graciousness.
And that's my mantra. So
Okay.
I
And can you spot it anywhere there at all?
it's there in the acknowledge, appreciate.
Acknowledge and appreciate section. perhaps.
Accept.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Yeah. So a great point there, Ashima. We are so fortunate, not only as IIM alumni, but so fortunate to be given resources to command, lead in corporations, right? And thereafter deliver results, make a difference. How often do we do it, what Ashima said, in a gracious enough manner, with some gratitude attached to it, right? And I think that was a huge learning for me. And since I was working a lot of the time with the energy of the people that I was working with, it was absolutely integral for me. So real-time celebrations with my team was my mantra. Real time. Yes, your hand was up.
Unlike the audacious goals, I think they're very often satisfied with just being better than what we were.
Right.
So like you just said, context of India, right? So
Right.
we as Indians are very happy that the airports in India are better than they were 5 years ago.
Right. Right.
You don't compare the airports with India with the latest airports all over the world. So I say we have this sort of time series mentality
Right.
where things are better, so we are happy, as opposed to having a cross-sectional mentality, and pardon the academic jargon here, but the fact that we should be constantly benchmarking and seeing what others are doing.
You remind me of a little quotation that one of my bosses put up way back in 1976. I was a young trainee, and J.R.D. Tata's quotation: "The only thing wrong with us is this chalta hai attitude." Right? So I'm reminded of that, and I think things have changed since then, but they need to change a lot more for the rightful place to be taken, right, on the global stage. Excellent point. Yeah, any other things that resonate with you in this journey towards excellence, in the way you have been doing your respective journeys? Any echoes?
Accountability.
Accountability.
Being in consulting, it's always a team game.
Absolutely.
And everyone has to
Absolutely.
focus on it.
Absolutely. And sometimes that is such a lonely game people play. People think it's just accounting, it's just audit's role to bring accountability. But what would it look like to work in a company where accountability is down the line, grassroots, which for me was an absolute pleasure to put my arms around grassroots leaders and get them to think and believe that they were owners of the company. That was one of the things that used to take up some of my time. Take a complex concept like EVA, economic value added, make it very simple, like this is what drives EVA, right? And driving skills coming from a Sardar family were not so difficult. So drive profitable revenue growth, driver number one. Then less is more, you said. Make every dollar, every minute count, get productivity up. Driver number two in place. Okay, driver number three, not all of us are working with it, but capital, can I redeploy it quickly behind the highest returns, right? So take a difficult concept like that and then quickly translate it into something that each of us can relate to, get entire workforce behind you and see if you don't see some magic happening, right? Yes, please.
Where do you put in like innovation and improvisation? I don't see this in here, probably in my
Innovation, yeah, if it's missing,
I'm just asking.
yeah, where would I put it? Let me take a copy in my hand too as I talk to you, because we are not using slides. Yeah, thank you, this is extra. Huh? It's on the screen now. Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so the question is, where is innovation and
Improvisation.
improvisation? Wonderful.
I would put
Accept
it in
and adapt.
audacious goals.
I think, yeah, audacious goals, unless we innovate, improvise, they're not going to happen. Someone else said adapt, right?
Accept and adapt.
Accept and adapt. Innovation of improvise might happen, right? But look here, this is not supposed to be the Bible, right? So it's a sort of a roadmap. It says the journey of the individual seems to run parallel to the journey of a group of individuals, the organization. And what I was trying to bring out in this was the commonality of the journey between whether we are doing it as the slogan called either I find a way or I make one, or the one that I was more comfortable with, either we find a way or we make it, right? So that's beautiful. But as a takeaway, there are too many A's in this slide. So if there was one takeaway I wanted to share with you, it's just three that absolutely stand out, at least for me when I'm trying to learn my way towards becoming a global business leader. There are three A's which stand out for me in that journey. For each one of us, depending on which sector of industry we've come from, whether we've come from a young company or a mature company, the three A's might be different. Accountability might be a very high common denominator, but otherwise, so each of us might take away three different A's out of this sheet, right? So if I just gave you a moment to reflect in your own organizations, in your own journey in life, your individual journey, three A's, your organization, whichever stage of its life cycle it is in, three A's. If I just gave you a moment to reflect that, whether you do it with a pencil or pen, doesn't matter, at least mentally, can you identify some three A's before I share with you what I want to leave behind with you as a takeaway from my side? So each one of you have managed to spot at least three A's, as this is in relative terms more relevant for me. Okay. Any guesses on what, when I was trying to take my journey beyond the boundaries of a single country to being able to deploy myself in any country of the world, and be fortunate enough to be called by Russians, you're not an Indian, you're one of us, or by Brazilians, you're not an Indian, you're one of us. So to be fortunate to be included in so many different societies all over the world, what was I deploying out of all these A's to learn a few skill sets and go beyond just emotional intelligence and go to the next level of intelligence, which was cultural intelligence. How can I be equally deployed and effective across cultures?
Accept and adapt.
Accept and adapt. Wonderful suggestion there. You're bang on actually. You've got one of the 3 A's I'm going to be talking about. Thank you so much. Anyone else, please? Appreciate. Bang on again. And the third one? Ask. There you go. Ask. Okay. If we can retain in this entire talk I shared with you today, that original thought I shared with you, that from Leonardo da Vinci, the genius number 1, and Einstein, if we can just retain this one quality, the ability to be curious, the ability to ask. In leadership terms, it goes way beyond just the ability to ask the right questions at the right time. For me, by the way, it used to be fun. Every new team I joined, every new industry I joined, fun question. Guys, I'm new. I don't know your industry or your business. Teach me, what business are we in? And such interesting questions, answers used to come up. People thought they knew what business they were in. But having just bluntly asked them, what business are we in? Very few people were really putting up their hands and willing to answer that question, right?
I think there's an interesting example here, and if it is true or not. When it said that McDonald's founder had a management meeting from people from various areas with it.
Yes.
And he asked them, so what business are we in?
Yes.
And people answered variety of things, food, customer service,
Yes.
Happiness and various other things.
Yes.
And he said, the answer is real estate.
Absolutely.
It's all about location.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, here if you can move me to the last slide, very last slide, I think I'm going to be taking a time out then, because I know it's hot and humid and it's late in the evening, right? So the last slide then is what I was just now summarizing, and thank you, you were so alive, and ask, the ability to ask right questions. I just gave you the example. Guys, tell me what business are we in, right? And then the next one, which says adapt. If there's a one single lesson nature is teaching us, it is constant change, constant cause and effect, stimulus and response, and constant ability to adapt to that. Right? Even our human body is reacting. I mean, all of us are fanning. It's 70 trillion cells in our body. They are just adjusting to the new humidity, the new temperature in that moment. So constantly adapt, and thereafter, if we can appreciate the different cultures, if we can genuinely respect them, if we can genuinely include everyone in a common sense, a co-ownership of endeavors, then I think we've got it. So those are the 3 A's that I'm always sharing with the next generation leaders. And of course, for the next generation leaders, I'm also sharing with them what is going to be different in the leadership skills of the future, this next 10, 20, 30 years, as compared to the past. So even if a dinosaur from the past, like I'm a 76 batch, we can learn some new tricks. Even old monkeys can learn new tricks. So here are the new tricks we are trying to learn, saying that in this new century that we are now living in, the skills that are required of leaders are slightly different than what they used to be. And in addition to everything that I've shared with you today about putting our arms around paradoxes, around people, these are the 7 absolutely critical skills that a global leader, and in our case, a multicultural leader in Toronto who wants to leverage diversity, these are the skills that I want you to probably spend a minute taking in, right? And if any single one attracts a comment from you, would love to hear it. Otherwise, basically, for me, this is the same theme with which I began the talk with you. Just about every signal over here has come to us from our oldest teacher, which is nature, and which most of you have also said to me is likely to remain our biggest teacher in the future. And we are living in a very, very beautiful world today, where there's been a handshake between nature and quantum science. Quantum science was born roughly 100 years ago, and that handshake is very robust. So no longer are we living in a world which is fractured. Science going one way, nature going another way. Scriptures going one way, day-to-day practicality going another way. So beautiful world where everything is coming together like that, and I invite us to continue our respective journeys, continue to find our respective ways as we go forward. Yeah? So I told you right in the beginning, I haven't yet found a way, but I hope I've shared with you a few pointers on the way and how I have used them to somehow construct a journey for myself. Together, for ourselves, I hope I have been able to give some thoughts to you that we can either find a way or we make one, right? So that's it for sharing with you today. Thank you so much for your attention.